Hey guys, I'm here today to do a bit of a random catch-up video. So this may be a bit of a longer video because what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about where I'm at with my reading goals, which were mainly focused on reducing my TBR at this point in the year. And then I'm going to talk about how I'm feeling about my reading and channel, and then I'm going to talk about a few books I've read recently, so this could be a long one. I do just want to quickly say, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but just in case you can, my arm's rustling. I've just had a tattoo and I have to have cling film on it while it heals, and it's making lots of rustling noises which are really annoying me, so I hope that you guys can't hear that over me talking. Anyway, so I probably should have done like a mid-year update, but everything was so sort of up in the air with life and also like what was happening with my reading and what my plans were for the year that I didn't. So very briefly, my start of the year plans were to reduce my TBR down to 100 unread books. I had 208, so it meant that each month I needed to reduce it by 9 books, and I gave myself a couple of rules in order to sort of force myself to do that, which meant that if every month I didn't reduce my TBR by 9 books, I had to get rid of some books to make it up to 9, and also I wasn't allowed to haul a book and have it unread on my shelf for longer than 6 weeks. Now initially I was doing quite well for the first few months, and then it just took a nosedive and I stopped following those rules. So it's a weird thing because overall I still believe in the outcome. I still want to only have 100 books, but I guess I don't believe in the outcome enough to be super strict for myself about it. It's just not in my nature. So I don't feel sort of annoyed with myself for not fulfilling the guidelines I set out. I'm just going to see how the rest of the year takes me, and I'd like to have some form of reduction, but it's not going to be what it should be. So anyway, what I'm going to briefly talk about is the numbers very quickly. So in terms of new books that I haven't read, it's got massively out of hand because I have 40 unread new books, and even if I had 6 weeks off work with nothing to do, I couldn't read 40 books in 6 weeks. And loads of those have been sitting around since March, like the 6 weeks deadline has been and gone. And in terms of what I've read 45 books so far this year, which is my slowest reading year since I've had the channel. As I said, towards the second half of last year my reading just slowed down. I think a lot of it for me is habit making and breaking, and I think I've sort of broken the habit of reading as much as I did previously, and also I've just had a lot go on the last couple of months with family stuff, so just haven't found as much time to read. So I'm only at 45 books, which for me is a bit of a shame because I do like reading a lot more than I've been doing, but I'm hoping that towards the second half of the year that will change. I always tend to read more in the autumn and the winter because it's just my happy time, so there's that. And then out of those 45, only 13 of those books were books I owned prior to the start of this year. 24 were new to me books, so books that I hauled and read, and then there were 8 other books which are random things like audiobooks, library books or rereads, which don't really count to the other 2 options. So again, I've been leaning towards reading newer books rather than my TBR. I will say that a lot of my TBR books I think are much more focused on colder seasons, so I have lots of books that are set in cold countries or in colder months, and I don't like reading those sort of books during the warm weather, so it just has sort of meant that those books have been backtracked until the end of the year, but I think I'll be much more focused on my TBR over hauled books once we get to September. So there is that. So the start of the year I had 208 books. At the moment, without the books I've hauled, I have 167. But once you add the 40 I've hauled, I have 207, so I've only reduced my TBR by 1 book in just over 7 months. Go me. But the reason I managed to get it down to 167 is because whilst I only read 13 of my books off my shelf, I also unhauled 28, and a lot of those were books I started and DNF'd, and a few were books I just realised I wasn't that interested in anymore, so I unhauled them. So yeah, it's not brilliant, but it is what it is. It's been a bit of a odd year for me, and I'm just accepting that this is what's happened and just sort of cracking on. So when I made all these plans, one of the big changes for you guys, I guess, who watch my channel, is that it changed the way I did videos. I decided to stop doing monthly wrap-ups. I found that a lot of my videos were really long, and whilst people seem to enjoy long videos, I really enjoy long videos, and they still get a similar amount of views to other videos. I just started to feel a bit anxious about the fact that lots of my videos are nearing the 20-minute mark. And so I decided to pull back from doing the monthly wrap-ups. I also hoped that would stop me having such an attitude of having to fill numbers in a month and read this amount of books in X month or whatever. And I guess it has, in that sense. I'm way less aware of how, I don't know how many books I read in a month on average anymore. But I think it's lessened my enjoyment of my channel, because I've stopped doing book hauls, which are sort of nice easy videos to do, and I've stopped doing monthly wrap-ups, which again are quite nice videos to do, and instead I do lots of I do lots of reviews, which are just generally harder videos to do. I have to be in the right mindset, I have to think about them a little bit more before I film them, and I'm just missing having more variety on my channel, I guess. And also there's some books that I don't necessarily want to talk about more in depth, but then if I don't review them, I'm never going to mention them. So effectively what I'm trying to say is I don't think the way I've been doing it has been working for me. And I don't think it's been working for the channel either, because I've not been uploading anywhere near as much. And some of that's been to do with various things that have been going on. But also some of it is just because I will be like, okay, I like to review 3 books in one video. But if I review 3 TBR books in one video, then I have to wait until I've read 3, which could take me 6 weeks, because I could instead be focusing on newer books. And so it's sort of, I found that the way I film my videos is guiding my reading, and I wanted to be the opposite. So I want to just get a bit more relaxed about how I do things. So bearing all that in mind, what I've decided to do is, I had a few books that were sitting waiting for me to review them, and for various reasons I hadn't, because I was waiting to read other books alongside them so I could talk about them. I've decided to let all of that go this month. So I've got 5 books I'm going to talk about here. I read all of these, I don't even know, last month. It could have been the month before, I don't remember. And I'm going to talk about them all, and then I'm going to just do the rest of the month how I feel like it. What I think I might do this month is do a half-month wrap-up and then an end-of-the-month wrap-up, because I'm reading at quite a good pace for me. And then I think from September onwards I might just start doing things old school. I may do a book haul if you guys want to see. I'm not going to do one now because I did just film my Newts TBR in which I showed a lot of my new books. I'll link that up here in case you haven't seen it and you want to see lots of my new books. But what I thought I might do is at the end of the month, whatever books I have left that are newer books that I haven't shown you guys yet, I thought I might just do a little bit of a book haul and an update so you guys know what I might be reading in the coming months, and then moving forward just take it each video at a time. So yeah, those are my plans. So I'm going to review the 5 books now. So the first 2 novels are books that I've owned for a while and only just got around to reading. So this one is Bel Canto by Anne Patchett. This is the 3rd book by Anne Patchett I've read, and I'll definitely go on to read more. So this is her most famous book, I reckon, and I think most of you will know what this one's about, but in case you don't, this is set in an unnamed Latin American country, in the Vice President's house, where a birthday meal is being hosted for a very important Japanese businessman. And at the meal, to celebrate his birthday, people from all over the world have been invited, and also a famous opera singer has been invited to perform for his birthday. The very first chapter of this novel, terrorists enter the house, they put it on lockdown, and the rest of the book is about this hostage situation. All these people, there's about 40 guests and quite a lot of terrorists as well in this house, and how they live together for quite a prolonged period of time. Now, I'd heard loads of people rave about this novel. I knew so many people enjoyed it, and I knew that it was a slow character focused novel, which is what I enjoy, and that's certainly what I got from this. This novel has 2 big focuses, which I've heard a few people say they didn't like. One of them being music. The opera singer is kept in the house with the others, and she performs quite often, and there's lots of discussions of people's connections with music, or with love through the love of music. And I didn't mind that. So the other theme is love itself. There's 2 relationships that begin to blossom in this book. I didn't like that as much. I found that a little bit heavy-handed. To begin with, I enjoyed it and I liked all the characters, and towards the end, yeah, I just felt it was a little bit over the top and sort of took over the novel a bit. So I really enjoyed this novel, but I guess I just found the relationship aspects ruined it a little bit. I really didn't like the final chapter, which I won't spoil, but I think it could have ended the chapter before. And I also had an issue with one of the relationships, in that one of the people in the relationship is a lot older than the other one, and also they're in a sort of position of power because of their level of wealth and education. And I didn't really feel like that was addressed in the novel. I've read lots of people's reviews and I only saw another couple of people mention it, but I read this relationship feeling really uncomfortable, like I was reading a relationship between a child and an adult, and I'm not sure if the author was going for that or whether she just didn't think it was an issue, but I found it quite uncomfortable, and that sort of spoiled the novel a little bit for me. So I really enjoy Ann Patchett. I can see why so many people love this novel, but there was just a couple of bits that stopped me from really loving it. So there's that one. And the next one is Euphoria by Lily King. I've owned this one for a few years and been convinced always that I would really enjoy it. So this is about 3 anthropologists in New Guinea in the 1930s. Our main character is called Nell Stone, but she is based on Margaret Mead, who I knew nothing about. Nell Stone is travelling with her husband Fen, and they have been out in New Guinea for a while, and they are leaving a group of people who they've been studying because things have gone a bit awry and got a bit dangerous. And they're trying to find a new group of people to study when they run into, let me check, Andrew Bankson. And Andrew Bankson has been out there for a while himself, and we find out very quickly that he's very lonely and depressed and a little bit mentally unstable. And he very quickly offers for them to study another group of local people that are quite near to him, because he's hoping he can visit them quite often and have some contact with people who can speak his language and understand him very easily. And the rest of this novel really follows a very bizarre triangle between the 3 of them, and their relationship with these people they're studying. And I really enjoyed this book. I think it's really well written. I found the characters completely engrossing. Thinking about it now, I know it's a book I'd want to reread. I really loved Nell and Andrew, really disliked Fen, all the feelings I was supposed to have, I did have. And I really liked all the discussions of anthropology, in that they talk about the fact that when you study people, you have to be present to do that. And by being present, you change the actions of those people. So you can never really get a true reflection of a group of people, because they're always changed by you being there. And I thought that was really well discussed throughout the novel, and I just really wanted it to go a certain way. I felt really tense at the end. I really recommend this novel. I don't think it's for everyone, but I certainly enjoyed it. The only criticism I have that stopped me from completely loving this book is that I think it wrapped up a bit too quickly at the end. It was quite a slow novel, and then all of a sudden there's lots of things that happened in the last 40 pages that I felt should have been given more time. And in a way I understand why that happened, because I think we were supposed to feel as shocked as the characters by these events and not really be given time to properly let them percolate, but I think I would have preferred a bit more time given to them. So I'd really recommend this one. That's Euphoria by Lily King. And then I have 3 recent books that I have hauled, but obviously not showing you guys. So I have a non-fiction book to talk about, and that is Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond. So I've seen loads of people talk about this because this won the 2017 Pulitzer Prize, as you can see. So we follow Matthew Desmond as he lives for several years in Milwaukee and studies the rental population. So he gets involved with a group of landlords and with a group of renters and tells us their story throughout the book. Now, what I didn't know before going in was the way this would be told, and what I really enjoyed is that Matthew Desmond keeps himself entirely out of the story. He never says I, he never acknowledges his presence in a room, and it just feels like this story being told. But yet, you know from the prologue, where he does explain a little bit, that he's not making this stuff up. What I really hate in non-fiction is when an author doesn't acknowledge how the data was collected, But then they'll tell you things like so-and-so wore a green top with a yellow logo on it, and you think, well, that's you know, very detailed, but I don't know how you know that, or if you were there, or how this happened. So the strongest thing I can say about this novel, just in terms of forgetting what it's about and just in terms of writing style, is that for me, this is the way these sort of stories should be told. Matthew Desmond lived with these people for many years, the information he collected was first hand, but he does not insert himself into the story and let the story become about his own experience, because he could have done, really. This could have been much closer to memoir. He could have commented on how a moment made him feel, and he really doesn't, and I really admired that. So I think this is fascinating. You know, it's a book that I think is enlightening wherever you're from, but I think if you're American it's particularly important. I'm British and our rental situation is entirely different, so I've lived in rental property since I was 11, so for a long time, and you know, there's shit stuff about it, but nowhere near to the degree in the US. And even discussions of the benefit system, I was horrified, like completely appalled at the way benefits are distributed and the caps on them, and the fact that, I don't know, like you look at the world and, you know, I guess I've been told throughout my whole education that the US and the UK are like the two world powers, with the wealthiest countries in the world, some of the modern countries in the world, and that's been changing more recently, but we've been raised to believe that. And then to be told that like 85% of someone's income goes on their rent, and they have like 15%, which could be like $80 to pay for everything else for the rest of the month, and that's completely legal and accepted, and if those people can't pay their bills, they're evicted. It makes no sense that it's not acceptable anywhere in the world, but it's particularly not acceptable in a country that, you know, celebrates itself as being a country where anyone can do anything and make anything of themselves. It's just crazy. So I think this is well worth the read. I think if you don't read non-fiction and you find it intimidating, this really isn't. This is a story about people. You get to know these people. There are facts and statistics, but they're really woven into the narrative, and I highly recommend this book. I thought it was excellent. So the next book I'm going to talk about is the only short story collection I've read so far this year, which is a really sad fact, because I used to read 2 or 3 every month, and now we've got to a point where I've read 1 in 7 months, so I need to change that very quickly. So the book is Florida by Lauren Groff. Now, in some ways there's bits of this that are excellent, but there's a lot of stuff that's just meh. So Lauren Groff wrote Fates and Furies. It's quite a well-known book. I really enjoyed it and I really like her writing style, and I was so happy and excited when I knew that she had a short story collection coming out that was focused on Florida. I find Florida a really fascinating place, and there's just something, I feel like Florida, if there's such a thing as places being at the border of this world and another, I feel like Florida would be one of those places that's like a borderland, because there's just something a bit weird about Florida, and so I was really excited about this collection. So the positives, there's a few stories in this that I thought were phenomenal, one of those being the first one. So, you know, this is where you can tell people have different tastes, because I'm going to read you a bit here, and some of you will probably think whatever, and some of you will probably think, as I did, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. So this is one of the first paragraphs. On my nighttime walks, the neighbours' lives reveal themselves, the lit windows domestic aquariums. At times, I'm the silent witness to fights that look like slow dancing without music. It is astonishing how people live, the messes they sustain, the delicious whiffs of cooking that carry through the street, the holiday decorations that slowly seep into daily decor. All January I watched a Christmas bouquet of roses on one mantel diminish until the flowers were a blighted shrivel, and the water-green scum, a huge Santa on a stick, still beaming merrily out of the ruins. Window after window nears, freezes with its blue flock of television light, or its couple huddled over a supper of pizza, holds as I pass, then slides into the forgotten. I think of the way water gathers as it slips down an icicle's length, pauses to build its glossy drop, becomes too fat to hang on, plummets down. So, yeah, I think she has a glorious way with words. I mean, that first story is about a woman who goes on nighttime walks through her neighbourhood in Florida, and just the things she sees. Nothing really happens, but I just thought it was beautiful. There's another story in this collection, I think it's called At the Round Edges of the World. I loved it. It's sort of a historical story about a young boy who grows up in a big mansion in the middle of nowhere that's overrun by snakes. His father's really abusive and just collects snakes and brings them into the house. And it's about this man growing up from being a small boy to an old man himself, and the way that habitat changes. And I thought it was really eerie and I loved it. But, and this is a big but, and something that I find really disappointing, especially, you know, it's 2018. So nearly all of these stories feel like they're about the same woman. They're nearly all, I think, bar one or two, about middle class white women who are from Florida. They all feel like the same woman. They're all quite interchangeable. Some of them are mothers, some aren't, but they all, yeah, they blend together. And I felt like we were being told about the same experience again and again, and it saddened me that this is a collection called Florida, so you feel like you're going to get the chaos of this place and all the different types of lives that can be led there, and then you don't really. And I get that the author is talking from her perspective and that perhaps you can't comment on other lives led there, but yeah, it just was a bit of a shame. And I always feel with collections that are a little bit longer, so this is, let me just double check, 270 pages, which is quite long for a short story collection. I just think they should have cut some out, and it would have been a stronger collection with a few less stories about middle class white women doing the same thing. So yeah, wasn't a massive fan of this. A few really excellent stories, but most of them I've forgotten about already, so there's that one. And then the last book I want to talk about is The Valley at the Centre of the World by Malaki Talek. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Now, this is a book for a certain type of reader. I am one of those certain types of readers, so I really enjoyed it, but not everyone would. This is about a group of people who live on a small valley in the island of Shetland. Shetland is an island off the coast of Scotland. It's one of the more well-known islands, but these group of people live in quite an isolated area in Shetland, and there's like 5 houses in this one little valley. The novel opens with us finding out that a relationship has just broken up, and the daughter has left to go back to the mainland, and she has left her partner in a house they were renting that her parents owned, so it's a bit of an uncomfortable situation. Her parents decide to continue to treat him like their sort of son-in-law, and they offer him work and continue to let him stay in the house. So it's sort of his story and theirs. And then there's a lady who comes from England who has moved to Shetland to write a book about the people there after the loss of her husband, which she's struggling to get over. And then there's also a younger couple who move into one of these houses from one of the towns in Shetland, and sort of I think from their perspective it's sort of a comment on the separate lives that can be led even on a place like Shetland, where, you know, as someone who lives on mainland, I guess you'd call it, you assume that places like Shetland, everyone who lives there is sort of, it's really rural, and everyone lives quite separate lives, but actually you get in these communities and there's even degrees of separation in every community to the smaller and smaller scale. So this is a slow novel focused around these people. Not a ton happens. You move from chapter to chapter within each of their homes, focusing on what's going on there and how these small things that are happening in their homes affect the others. And yeah, really it's just a comment on these people, what it's like to live in a valley like this, and the lifestyles they lead. So most of these people are what's the word, crofters, so they own a croft, and they look after the sheep and they look after their own land, so you hear a bit about that. So yeah, it's hard to describe this novel because not much happens. I think it's really great. I love books like this. I love books set on islands, very slow focus, character studied. This is beautifully written. The descriptions of the weather and the landscape are perfection, and I will 100% read more of this author's work. All of his other books are non-fiction about islands, so I really want to read those, but I'm also really hopeful that he'll bring more novels out, because I really enjoyed this, and I think if you enjoy books about islands or focused on isolated communities or rural lifestyles, then I think you should give this one a go. So those are all the books that I wanted to chat about and give you guys a bit of a catch up on. Apologies that this video is very, very long, but I hope you enjoyed it, and do feel free to comment down below with anything you have to say about the books or how my reading is going or anything like that, and do let me know if you've read any of these books or if you have any other recommendations for me down below. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video, bye!